You know that feeling, right? You spend hours, maybe a whole afternoon, writing what you think is perfect code, only to find out the entire idea was flawed from the get-go. Ugh. Today, we're going to dig into why that happens so often, and how a simple change in how you see your AI assistant, treating it less like a builder and more like a thinker, can save you from that exact trap.
This quote really just says it all. It's from a developer named Timothy, and it just perfectly captures that gut punch feeling. You pour all this effort into building something, the execution is flawless, but the concept itself is just wrong. It's so frustrating, and it's really the heart of what we're going to unpack today.
So, Timothy's story is a perfect case study. He spent a solid 3 hours cranking out a new feature, using his AI assistant to help him along the way. And you know what? The code was beautiful, the logic was solid, and every single test lit up green. From a technical standpoint, it was a home run.
But then, a colleague took a look, and in just 4 minutes, they spotted the fatal flaw. The problem wasn't the code at all. It was the entire premise. This beautiful, elegant solution actually made another related problem way worse. And the AI? Well, it couldn't have warned him, right? It was only ever asked to build, not to think. The real mistake was made way before a single prompt was ever typed. It was a failure to plan.
See, Timothy thought he had a plan. Why? Because he knew what he wanted to build. But his mentor, a woman named Margaret, pointed something out that is just so crucial. That's not a plan. That's a destination. And understanding that difference is a complete game changer.
So let's break that down. A destination, that's the what. It's the shiny feature you have in your head. But a plan is all the messy, critical thinking you do before you even think about starting. It's that golden window of opportunity where you're totally free to change your mind because, hey, it hasn't cost you anything yet.
Imagine there's this line, right? On one end, you have the problem, and on the other, you have code. So many of us, we get excited and we jump in somewhere in the middle of that line, or let's be honest, usually right at the code end. But the most valuable, high-impact work, that happens way back at the beginning, sometimes before we've even nailed down what the problem truly is.
And this idea of code gravity, wow, it is so real. The second that code exists on your screen, it creates a kind of sunk cost. You're invested, and your brain, almost without you noticing, stops questioning the idea and starts defending the code. It literally pulls your thinking into its orbit, which makes it almost impossible to see the flaws in your own logic.
So, where does your trusty AI assistant fit into all of this? Well, this is where that big mindset shift has to happen. It's about fundamentally changing the job you give to your AI. Instead of just treating it like a builder, you need to first use it as a thinking partner. So your prompt changes. It goes from, hey, help me build this thing, to, hey, help me figure out if this thing is even worth building. You're not looking for validation anymore. You're looking for it to poke holes, to call out your assumptions, to show you the risks. The outcome you want isn't code, it's clarity.
Okay, so that sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? Well, Margaret offers up a really straightforward framework for this whole pre-coding phase. It's built on 4 simple, but seriously powerful pillars.
Pillar number 1, the problem statement. And here's the rule. It's a simple test. If you have to use words like database, API, or front-end component to explain the problem, you don't actually understand it well enough yet. This forces you to get to the absolute heart of the matter, the what and the why, long before you even start whispering about the how.
Second, you have got to map out your constraints. And I don't just mean the technical stuff like performance or memory. No, you have to think about the human constraints. Who's going to have to maintain this code in 2 years? Whose daily workflow is this change about to completely upend? These are the factors we always forget, and they're usually the ones that come back to bite us.
Third, you have to define what done actually means. And it can't just be, well, the feature is coded. No way. You need a specific, crystal clear, unambiguous measure of success. How will you know without a single doubt that you have solved the real underlying need? That right there is your actual finish line.
And finally, we have the step that feels a little weird at first, but is maybe the most important of all. Risks. You have to ask, what are all the ways this could go wrong? And even more importantly, where am I just guessing? Where is my own understanding weakest? This isn't about being negative. It's actually the most optimistic thing you can do, because it lets you find and fix failures before they ever become real.
So after all that upfront work, what's the real payoff here? I'll tell you, it's a lot bigger than just saving yourself a few hours of coding.
Timothy looked back and realized that just 30 minutes, a half hour, of this kind of planning with an AI thinking partner could have saved him 3 hours of wasted coding. But you know what? The real cost wasn't even the lost time. It was that feeling, that little crack in his confidence when he realized he'd been so sure and so wrong.
When you do this planning, you get clarity before you start and confidence after you finish. It also gives you the power, the right really, to push back on bad requirements because you've actually done the research. And that's what elevates you from being just a builder of code into a true bona fide problem solver.
Which brings us to this final question. The next time you open up your AI assistant, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, am I about to ask this thing to build for me, or am I going to ask it to think with me? Because that one little decision, right there, can be the difference between building something right and building the right thing.